Victoria was worried about her boyfriend, Ryan. She had completed all his assignments and was now looking for him before going to the class. Victoria and Ryan were business students completing their last year of college. Victoria was the class's smartest kid, whereas Ryan was the complete opposite. He would bunk his classes, forget to prepare for tests, or submit his assignments on time. It was Victoria who always saved him and his falling grades. They both used to spend a lot of time together. However, from the past few days, Victoria observed that Ryan had been blowing her off. He would tell her that they would hang out later, or he was busy doing something important, etc. Victoria felt sad. She didn't have many friends, and her boyfriend also ignored her. After the college was over, Victoria went towards her car and unlocked it. She looked at the back seat of her car and saw the beautiful box she had packed for her customer. She drove the car to the address and knocked on the door. A young woman opened the door and Victoria delivered her the box. The woman opened the box and yelled in excitement. "This dress is so amazing! Thank you, Victoria!" Victoria was happy that her customer liked the order. "I am glad you liked it, and I hope you think of me in the future," Victoria replied. Her customer said, "Of course, darling. I can't wait to see your business grow and reach new heights of success." Victoria smiled and her customer continued, "Always remember, Victoria, some people dream of success while others wake up and work. If you want your business to grow, never give up working." Victoria nodded, took her customer's money, and sat back in her car. She loved every bit of her work and thought of it as her recreational activity. She saved her money to open her own small store one day, and Victoria was optimistic that a day would come when she would fulfill her dreams. The following day, when Victoria went to the college, she saw Ryan hanging out with a beautiful new girl in their school named Cynthia. Victoria couldn't help but notice her gorgeous hair, perfectly manicured nails, and designer handbag. She went towards Ryan and tapped his shoulder. Ryan looked at him and told her that she should go to class and that he would meet her there. Victoria didn't like Ryan ignoring her again, but she nodded. "Hey, Ryan, who is she?" Cynthia asked. Ryan scratched his head and replied, "Oh, she is just a class fellow." Victoria was hurt. Why didn't Ryan introduce her as his girlfriend? But she remained quiet and went to the class. Ryan came to the class, but avoided her the entire time. Victoria decided to talk to him after the class. "Hey, Ryan, are you okay? You seem a little disturbed," she asked politely. "Yeah, everything's fine. I am getting kind of late. Can we talk later?" Ryan replied annoyingly. Victoria nodded and watched him leave. She had doubts that Ryan was no longer interested in her. That thought made her sad. The following day, Ryan came to Victoria's place. She was sitting in her comfortable t-shirt and cutting the fabric she had bought to make a prom dress. She was surprised to see Ryan, but as soon as she saw the pile of notes and books in his hands, her smile faded. "Hey, Victoria, how are you? Again playing with fabrics and needles?" Ryan asked her. Victoria nodded. "I have a special order from a client online." She was so impressed by the reviews that she placed an order for 3 dresses. Ryan nodded. "Victoria, I have some pending work. Can you please finish it for me?" Victoria shook her head. "I am sorry, Ryan. I have to deliver the dresses by the end of this week." Ryan became angry and said, "Come on, Victoria, I am your boyfriend. Can't you skip this for me?" Victoria looked at him and furrowed her brow. "But the other day you told me that I was just your classmate." Ryan scowled at her and said, "I didn't want Cynthia to ask more questions. That's why I said that." Victoria didn't reply to him and got busy with her work. Ryan said, "Victoria, you are making a grave mistake by doing this to me. You have to complete my assignments." He dropped his books on Victoria's bed and left her room. She looked at those books and the fabric spread in front of her. She decided to focus on her client's order rather than wasting time finishing her mean boyfriend's homework. The next day, she gave Ryan his stuff back. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't get time to finish it. I can help you with these assignments in our free periods if you want." Ryan looked angrily at her. "Victoria, I think we should break up. You are of no use." Victoria was shocked that her boyfriend of 2 years would break up with her because she didn't complete his work. "I tolerated you and your boring stitching stuff only because you did my work," Ryan screamed at her, and everybody watched them. Victoria became aware of all the eyes on her, so she left the classroom and went to the library to hide her face and cry. A few minutes later, she went to the cafeteria to buy a coffee and saw Cynthia and Ryan sitting together and laughing at her. Victoria ignored them and went towards her car. She was upset about her bad day at college and everything Ryan said. She sobbed for a few minutes in her car and then sped towards her home. "Surprise!" someone shrieked when Victoria entered her room. "Anne? What are you doing here?" Victoria ran and hugged her cousin. "I came for the weekend, so we are not wasting any minute and starting our fun weekend right now." Anne grabbed her hand and dragged her out of the house. They went to the beach and sat on the sand. Victoria closed her eyes and inhaled the crisp sea breeze and felt good. Anne traced her fingers in the sand and asked Victoria to play in the water. Both rolled their pants and wet their feet in the chilled water. Anne splashed some water on Victoria's clothes and chased her crazily to do the same. Once it was time for the sun to set, they sat on the sand and watched the beautiful colors sprawled in the sky. Victoria took a deep breath and said, "Ryan and I broke up today, just because I refused to do his work." Anne looked at her. "Good for you, Victoria. Ryan was using you. He doesn't deserve you. Now you can finally give your 100% time to your business. Don't forget to make me a partner when it grows," Anne teased her. Victoria laughed and nodded. They sat there for a few more minutes and then got home. The weekend passed like the wind, and it was time for Anne to go home. But Victoria promised her that she would visit Anne very soon. It was Monday, and Victoria was dreading going to college. She didn't want to go and face Ryan and Cynthia, but she went anyway and instantly regretted it. Ryan got out of her new girlfriend's luxury car. Cynthia stepped out, and she started walking with Ryan towards the college. Victoria saw them both, but she ignored them and started walking. But then Ryan spotted her. "Look, Cynthia, who we have here, the college's geek who wants to open a big store for her tiny business." Ryan and Cynthia laughed. "Why don't you leave me alone, Ryan? We're done." Victoria retorted, "You didn't do the right thing by saying no to me. Do you know how bad it will affect my grades?" Ryan pointed the finger at her. "Oh, why don't you and your new girlfriend do it together? Maybe you'll learn something about business," Victoria replied, and it boiled Ryan's blood. "Do you think of yourself as the queen of the world with good grades and good reviews on your social media pages? You know what? I will show it to you," Ryan threatened her. Victoria ignored their comments and walked to her class. It was her last semester, and she didn't want to waste it by focusing on Ryan and his new girlfriend, so she decided to focus on her studies. The semester passed on quickly, and it was a party night at school. Victoria wore a dress she had made for herself, which looked lovely on her. She then picked up 4 boxes and carefully placed them in her car. She had to deliver them to her customer early the next day. She left for the party. As soon as she stepped out of her car, she saw a few girls staring at her dress and felt proud of herself. She walked towards her friends and went inside the hall to enjoy the party. Cynthia came to her and asked her, "Where did you buy this dress from? I didn't see it in any designer store." Victoria smiled and said, "I made it myself." Cynthia was surprised, but she smiled evilly and threw fruit juice at her dress. "Oops, sorry. But hey, you can always make this dress again, right?" Cynthia left, and Victoria saw Ryan and his friends laughing at her. She got teary-eyed and went to the bathroom to clean her dress. Once she finished cleaning the stain, she opened the bathroom door, which was locked from the outside. She tried unlocking it, but all in vain. Someone had locked her inside the bathroom. She knocked on the door and shouted for help, but the music was so loud in the hall that no one heard her. She continued banging, but no one came. Victoria was getting anxious. She started crying and felt terrified in the bathroom alone, but she continued slamming the door with all her might. A few minutes later, the door opened, and it was Ms. Alexa. "Who locked you here, Victoria?" she asked Victoria. "I have no idea, Ms. Alexa. I came here to clean my dress and someone locked me." Victoria replied with tears still flowing down her face. "It's okay, dear. Let's go outside, have some water, and then we will find out who did this to you," Ms. Alexa suggested, and Victoria nodded. When they came outside, the music stopped and people watched Victoria's smudged makeup and tear-stained face. A few of her friends came to Victoria and asked her if she was okay. Victoria had water, and then a few minutes later she told Ms. Alexa, I want to go home and rest." Ms. Alexa nodded and offered to walk her to her car. When they were in the parking lot, Victoria saw Ryan and his friends running away from the car. She ran towards her car and Ms. Alexa followed her. She cried in anguish as she saw that Ryan had destroyed the dresses she was supposed to deliver in the morning. Victoria had spent weeks preparing these dresses, but now she had to cancel the order and apologize to her client. She also feared that the client would leave her a negative review, and it would tarnish her business's reputation. She frantically checked each box, and every dress was in shreds. "Calm down, Victoria, it's okay. You will get a panic attack. Please breathe," Ms. Alexa advised. Victoria continued crying and told her teacher that she had to deliver these dresses to a client in the morning, and there was no way she could make these dresses overnight. "Victoria, you can talk to your client, and I'm sure she would understand. Besides, I saw Ryan and his friends running away from the car. I am pretty sure it was their doing. I will access the CCTV footage, and we will take this matter to the principal. Don't worry, sweetheart," Ms. Alexa explained to her. Victoria nodded and went home. She couldn't sleep for a minute and kept thinking about her client's reaction. She thought of ways to explain the bizarre situation to her client, but she didn't come up with anything good. She stayed awake the entire night, and finally, it was time to go talk to the client. Victoria went to the address and rang the bell. A kind gentleman opened the door and asked her name. Victoria introduced herself and requested to meet Ms. Adam Hills. The man nodded and invited her inside the house. Victoria held the boxes tightly and nervously waited for her client to explain the entire situation. "Hello, Victoria. How are you feeling, darling?" Victoria was shocked to hear a familiar voice. She looked up, and it was her teacher, Ms. Alexa. "Ms. Alexa, what are you doing here?" Victoria asked nervously. "I am Alexa Adam Hills, your customer." Alexa smiled widely as she replied. Victoria was shocked to learn that her teacher had ordered the dresses from her. "I have visited your Facebook page and loved the dresses that you made, so I decided to give you an order for my daughter. She also loved your designs. And I saw what Ryan did to you last night. So you don't have to worry, dear," Alexa explained to her. Victoria was still in shock and couldn't process how luck had been on her side. "I am very sorry, Ms. Alexa, for your dresses. I will make sure to prepare the new ones for you at my earliest," Victoria assured her. Ms. Alexa nodded and said, "I'm so proud of you, Victoria, for following your passion and not giving up on your dream. After I saw you last night, I thought, you won't show up, and cancel my order. But I am impressed that you chose to show up and talk to your customer." Victoria felt so light and relieved that her Facebook would no longer be tarnished by a bad review. Ms. Alexa had accessed the CCTV footage and found Cynthia locking Victoria in the bathroom, and Ryan had unlocked Victoria's car to destroy her dresses. The principal expelled Ryan and Cynthia from the college and refused to issue them their business degree. Ryan had damaged his career in pursuit of ruining Victoria's business. Victoria was happy that Ryan was finally out of college. No one would tease or ridicule her for following her passion. 7 years had passed since Ryan was expelled from the college. He had big dreams for himself, but destroyed them with his own hands. He was now just a high school graduate with no college degree. He worked in small films with mediocre pay. He always regretted the day he tried sabotaging Victoria's career by ruining her dresses. Sometimes he thought about how different his life would have been if he didn't resort to hurting and bullying Victoria. But it was too late. One day, Ryan saw an ad for a junior accountant job at a renowned clothing brand. He applied right away and got the call for an interview. Ryan dressed up nicely for the interview. He wore his tie, grabbed his file, and left the house. Upon arriving at the company, Ryan was in awe of its grandeur. He went inside and hoped to ace his interview. He was made to sit in the meeting room, and a few minutes later, he saw someone entering the room. It was Victoria who entered the room. She was wearing an elegant office suit with expensive shoes and a watch. She looked different than what she used to look in college. Ryan smiled at Victoria and went to her. "Hello, Victoria. I'm so surprised to see you here. Listen, I wanted to apologize for all that happened in the past." Victoria smiled and said, "It's okay, Ryan, it was 7 years ago. I have forgiven you. What are you doing here?" she asked. Ryan told her that he was there for an interview. He then asked Victoria, "How much does the company pay you? Plus, what about the boss? Is he good?" Victoria smiled and said, "The company is excellent, and the boss is fantastic." Ryan nodded and smiled. "Do you still make dresses? Or the jobs keep you occupied? I always told you that business won't work, but I'm glad you found yourself a good job." Victoria looked at him sternly and picked up the laptop and an expensive handbag from the table. "Are you collecting the boss's items? Are you her secretary? That's nice. You can put a good word for me, right?" Ryan said. Victoria smiled at him and shook her head. Just then, a young girl entered the room and rushed towards Victoria. "I am sorry, ma'am. Here, let me handle all the stuff for you," she said. Victoria smiled at her and said, "It's okay, dear. I'll manage. Meanwhile, can you take this man to the HR room for his interview?" Victoria asked her young secretary. She nodded and said to Ryan, "Sir, please follow me." Ryan looked confused, so he asked Victoria, "Is she your secretary? What position do you work in?" The young secretary looked perplexed and replied to him, "Sir, Ms. Victoria is the company's owner. She isn't an employee." Ryan was flabbergasted. He couldn't believe that the girl he dumped in college now owned a multi-million-dollar company. Victoria smiled at him and raised her eyebrows. "I followed my passion and never stopped making clothes. I didn't just dream of my business, but actually worked hard for it to grow and expand. And here I am now. Good luck with the interview, Ryan." Victoria walked out of the meeting room and went to her room. She sat on her table and smiled at how far she had made in her life, despite so many obstacles thrown her way. She opened her laptop and continued to work to take her company to new heights of success.